Welcome to episode. Oh wait, it's not an episode. It's a special edition. It's a collector spotlight, and today we were lucky enough to have Cardboard Icons Ben Aguirre with us.
Hi, Mark.
Welcome, Ben. How we doing?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Doing outstanding. And as always, I have my co-host with me at our trading cards, Ben Wilson, and at Junk Wax Twins, Stefan Loeffler. Fellas, how are you doing today?
Last and best. I get it.
Sure.
I am better than Stefan will ever be. He's tried, but he won't ever be as cool as I am today.
Well, that's okay.
Because my AC went out.
That is exactly right. He's tried, but he won't.
I missed you guys this week. It wasn't the same being on the show, so we had to have an extra special episode to have me on. You know,
Yeah,
it's all about me.
It was almost perfect how it was with Steph and Mike and I.
Yeah, there was no intro music though. It was just this hey.
Well,
you know, it wasn't a quality show. It was all right.
Speaking of the intro music, is a great segue. Oh no, we had a great time without you, and I can't say we missed you. And now we're holding open auditions this Tuesday.
That's fine. I'll just change all the passwords. It's cool. Anyway, we're going to get to our amazing guest who made some time for us on a Sunday. We appreciate it, Ben. Thanks for coming on. You're the best Ben we've ever had on the show already. All you said is hello. So, no, we got to talk a little bit before the show, and I asked. He does prefer a longer episode, so I just want to put that out there.
Mm-hmm.
Great collector, great minds think alike, right?
That's true.
So as we get into a bit, just talk to us a little about your collecting history. Like, when did you start? What got you going and motivated? Because I think you're all in about the same. Well, like minus Steph, you're right around with Ben here and I, correct? In age.
Yeah, yeah. So I personally started collecting in '87, which is kind of a theme, right? I was born in '80, so I was 7 years old when I started collecting. But I actually got my collecting. Collecting was really introduced to me by my mother. I want to say 84, 85. Garbage Pail. I was 85. Garbage Pail Kids started to come out, and I don't know why she thought it was a good idea, but she was buying them for her 5-year-old son, and we were putting sets together, and we moved down to the South Bay. I'm in San Francisco Bay Area, and I was introduced to baseball by some of my friends, and we had a card shop across the street, and they were collecting baseball cards at the time, and I didn't have any new money, so I ended up selling all of the Garbage Pail Kids for baseball cards. So that's kind of when things started for me. There wasn't really a focus. It was more so just about quantity. Owning cards was new and exciting and wanted them all.
Who's your is it I know right now you're a Red Sox fan. Were you always a Red Sox fan?
So yes. Since about 88. I grew up in this A's Giants area, and the A's were hot, back then. So it was always fun to come home and listen to them on the radio, watch the games in the afternoon and whatnot. But when it came time to pick teams and players that we enjoyed, I had one friend who really liked the Red Sox, or liked the A's, one that really liked Darryl Strawberry and the Mets for whatever reason, and I just absolutely did not like the Giants. So I just chose the Red Sox. I really liked Roger Clemens, so I went that way.
That's cool.
And that's how
you still collect Clemens today, right?
Yeah, it had been on and off for a while. I collected Clemens exclusively almost for about 5 or 6 years in the early 90s. And then, we started to see Chase cards hit the hobby, and everything else became appealing as well. And then I just recently came back to player collecting about 2 years ago when I started to get bored with everything else.
Nice. So I know that, and you've always kind of motivated me, and I was really excited to have you on the show and to be on today, is that you always had, I know you had them in display cases, but like rookie cards of like Hall of Famers, and it was, you were like, hey, I don't care, what grade it is, I'm going to get a graded version of this card. And then if I find a better one, I'm going to pick it up later and sell this
Mhm.
one and kind of help pay for that one and upgrade myself.
Right.
What got you started on that? Because it's amazing. Because I mean, the you had I think 2 or 3 of them at a time, and like the last one was like a Brett and Yount rookie because all of them are pre like 75. So we're talking a really nice collection of rookie cards.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Well, so rookie cards were also something that started to come up. So, chase cards in the 90s were really hot in the early 90s, right? And then overproduction started to pick up, and you start to see that the interest in that was starting to wane a little bit. And I always felt that rookie cards were the place to go for, for a stable collection. For something that wasn't going to, tail off. No one's ever going to forget about the rookie cards. So I kind of started to head that direction. And I was collecting everyone's rookie card. And in '97, actually traded all my Michael Jordan cards for a Bowman Jose Cruz Jr. rookie. Because that was the hot guy.
Yeah.
So anyhow, later on, I got into the Hall of Famers, and I kind of worked backwards. Started with some of the more present ones, and then, not to get ahead of ourselves or way off topic, but flip game. I used to buy stuff at thrift stores and resell it and take that profit and just put it into vintage rookies. So now I've got a case up here that's actually, this is everything before 1954, and then one over there that's more current. But so I went backward and just tried to collect them all.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you just said, you were like, hey, if I found a good value on a card that I liked, I'm gonna buy it, or I'm gonna pick it up and add it to my collection, because I can say, hey, I have Yastrzemski rookie, I have a Ted Williams, whatever it happens to be. It's like I have one of those rookie cards in my collection, and it took that kind of snootiness away from me, I guess, of having to have like a really nice version of the card to say at least you have one. And later on, if you find something better, again, you upgrade it. I thought that was it kind of opened my eyes a little bit to say, God, you know what? It doesn't matter. It's what I collect, not what everybody else cares about.
Yeah, well, condition is kind of, not everyone can afford the high condition cards. And we're talking within the last 15 years, vintage rookie cards have just exploded in value, just absolutely exploded. Actually, seriously got into the higher end stuff in about 2005. I'd taken about an 18-month, 2-year break from cards, and I got a good deal on a Justin Verlander SP Authentic rookie, and I was comparing the value at the time. It was like a $250 card in a Gem Mint 9.5, and it was the same price as a 51 Bowman Mays. I was like, that is ridiculous. This guy's done absolutely nothing in the majors, but we have Willie Mays' Bowman rookie card here for about the same price. So I sold the Verlander and bought the Mays. And that's when things started. I was like, okay, you buy one, it kind of unlocks this idea that it's unstoppable. You can keep going. And so it happened. And low grade is the way to go for me because I couldn't afford the high end stuff.
Yeah, I just always thought it was really cool. And I also noticed too, I purchased a couple of game used balls from special days. So like games that I went to that like for my bachelor party, I went and picked up one from that one. The day my son was born, the Giants and Royals both had home games. I picked up balls from those games. But you have a very interesting collection of game used baseballs right behind you.
Yeah, well, that's like a third of it. But so yeah, game used balls are interesting. So obviously the game used cards are always of interest, especially in the late 90s. And then I started to realize you can actually buy these balls at the stadium. You don't have to wait for them to go on eBay. You don't have to guess or which game that came from. MLB was pretty good about stickering the teams through MLB. They were good about stickering the items and telling you where it came from. So I started buying balls from games that I was attending. And 2 years ago, I got my first hit by pitch ball, and it was kind of an addiction after that, if you will. I was at a Cubs-Giants game, and Matt Moore hit Chris Bryant on the elbow. And after the game, I went over to the stand, and there it was for, whatever they're charging for it. And I said, I want that ball. And Chris Bryant was still hot stuff at the time. So I said, okay, that's the one I want. And it just kind of became a niche collection after that. So I'm up to about 20 hit by pitch balls now.
Well, that's awesome.
I mean, if you were to ask Ivan, he'd probably say that Chris Bryant is still pretty hot. But, I mean, that's a...
Well, I think that there are a fair amount of people who still believe he's hot stuff in terms of this hobby. But I always saw him as more of a Scott Rowland kind of guy. Solid player, good fan base, but not necessarily the biggest player in the majors or even our hobby.
Yeah, and that kind of brings me to a quick discussion I want to have. So you were talking about when Verlander's card was the same as a Mays Bowman. And right now we have Wander Franco. and you can pick up some of his cards for the price of what you could pick up maybe 2 or 3 bust, or even see Joey Bart related catcher to San Francisco. You can pick up a Buster Posey for maybe a couple of them for what you can get a Joey Bart for. And Posey's won 3 World Series, a batting title, MVP, a Rookie of the Year. He has all these accolades to him. He's probably really close to being on the edge of a Hall of Fame career, but yet a guy that's never played majors, that was drafted, not even 12 months ago, was outselling him. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's weird though. This hobby is really interesting because success on the field doesn't necessarily translate to success in the hobby, or even people caring about the cards, because it really is about supply and demand. I mean, Posey's a guy that, when he came up in 2010, he was hot stuff. I mean, he was the guy. It was him and Jason Hayward. Those were the guys in this hobby. And then, as time goes on, you get new faces in here. And yeah, Posey's won 3 World Series. I agree. He's probably going to be in the Hall of Fame. But how many people are actively collecting Posey? More people are just not really caring at this point. They're just sitting around, and I'm sure it'll pick up a little bit at some point, but it's all about what's next. Where can I put money and eventually make more money? No, there are very few people collecting. There are a lot of people trying to profit off of stuff they're buying.
So that begs a little bit more of a definition. When you say something is expensive, expense is relative to your income, your desire, etc. Right? Your socioeconomic, if I've got high child support and you're single, then that even if we make the same amount of money, we have the same job, same amount of hours. You live at home with mom and have no kids, and I've got so on and so forth. So the word collecting, when you say collecting, that begs the same kind of a definition. Are people collecting these guys? We would collect Posey, right? We would collect vintage, but are you collecting Wander Franco, or are you acquiring Wander Franco? There is a distinct difference, in my opinion. What are your thoughts?
There's not one. Well, that's the thing about our hobby, right? There's not one way to collect, and everyone's definition of collecting is different. People are going to PC Wander Franco, and they're going to call it PC, and it's going to annoy the shit out of me. Pardon me, but
no, I'm there with you.
So, it in some ways it's interesting because we like to nitpick. I mean, that's what we're collectors. we like what we like, and we don't what we don't. So when it comes to collecting, it's really not fair for us to kind of judge someone based on what they say they're collecting. But the way you and I, or even the 3 of us and I, may view someone's collecting habits may not be the same as them. They may not care about Buster Posey or Dwight Evans or anyone else that ever played this game. They may just care about who they're going to see in the future, who they think is going to bring them a small fortune for very little money.
And you and I have had this conversation. I don't know if it was in private or if it was openly through Twitter, but hey, I've got a stack of Roger Clemens cards here, and they're all from the 80s. And I'm going to send you these 20 Roger Clemens. But what I need in return is my PC is Trout, Acuna, and Franco. So,
it's tough, especially as a player collector. I mean, because there's also this idea that if you were a player collector, then you suddenly don't care about anything else in your collection, which is nonsense. I mean, I have a stack of Trouts over here that I've suddenly decided that I probably should hold on to these instead of trading them off for other things I don't care about. Or doubles or triples of other things. It's a fluid situation. You can't really pigeonhole people into certain spots.
No, and PCs are going to adapt over time. We've talked about that even on this last show that we had about, PCing. What would you tell yourself as a younger collector? Basically, you can't collect everything, and PCs do adapt. For instance, I don't usually go too much out of my own personal zone, but then all of a sudden Topps Living came along and got me buying a couple of cards I normally wouldn't buy. Right. And now with Greg Krinder's, contribution to Topps 150, now I might start picking up his contributions because I'm never going to afford one of his, his original pieces of artwork. That's just not in my, my financial future. But right. I'm the same way that I traded off and sold off a lot of Harpers and Trouts prematurely. And I don't know what all I had. I do know I had quite a few of the, I think it was the 09 Bowmans. But those are long gone for $6 a piece.
Yeah, but for every Trout and Harper, there are, how many, Billy Butlers, not to pick on an A's guy or a Royals guy, but, how many, every year there's a group of 4 or 6 prospects that are kind of like the guy to have, and very few of them actually pan out long term. So as long as you're getting what you enjoy, and that's really the key to all of this, is to collect what you enjoy, and if you don't like it, don't buy it.
And to meet good people,
That too.
The hobby wouldn't have brought. I mean, Tim and I have talked about this before, that we literally live right next to each other geographically, and even met each other in person. But it was Twitter that brought us closer together, and the community of how many good people there are on Twitter.
Yeah.
In that hobby community, and have made friendships outside of this, all because we have a common interest.
Yeah.
It really is remarkable, and it helps when you have like-minded collectors, because when a lot of what you say in your blog is indicative of, we could have written that as well.
Yeah,
if we're a better writer.
Yeah, and I want to get into that too, because when you're posting a handful of times a week, and it's always, what I love about it is it's quick and to the point. You can pick it up, enjoy it, and consume it, but it's not taking 2 or 3 reads to get through. It's not taking half an hour to sit there and read. You literally can sit down. It comes up. I love to. I'll pull it up, and if taking the elevator at the office or whatever, I'll take a look at, read it on the elevator up, and that's like really sometimes how quick they are. But it's insightful and to the point, and that's why I love. So, how long have you been doing the blog?
Well, the blog, I started the blog in July of 2008. And I was I didn't really have a focus on it at the time. It was more of a card of the day kind of thing. This was right around the time that Beckett's message boards took a crap when they redesigned their website. That was kind of the birth of like the blogging era of our, and I know we're going to get, Chris Harris still going to say, oh no, I've been around since like 99. Fair, fine. But I mean, the message boards were where things were at for a good while anyway. It felt that way. And then the blogging thing kind of took off when those message boards went away. So for me personally, I started in 2008, and it was kind of a card of the day thing. I have all these cards sitting around. I was a professional writer at the time, so I was kind of doing that stuff. I'm like, hey, others are kind of doing this stuff. Why not me? So it just kind of took off that way. I was kind of sharing memories, and the blog's adapted over the years. Sometimes it's gone a little dormant based on different things going on in life. Like right now, I don't think I've written anything of real substance in a couple weeks. Just a couple short posts here and there, which is fine too. But, it's interesting because when it comes to blogging, there are some people who do it with this outside idea of, I'm going to do this because I want a job here, or I'm trying to get, companies to sponsor me and send me stuff so I can review on my website. And I don't care about that shit. Come on, really? You cannot give an impartial opinion on something when someone's supplying you the product. You can't, because you have nothing at stake. Yeah. So that's never been my style. So I just kind of said, you know what, screw it. This is for me. I don't care who reads it. It's really my diary.
There's a lot of people that do write hoping that Panini will find it and, hey, let us send you 3 boxes of cards. And I've had a lot of people in the past that I've come across, and to each is their own. And that's part of the reason that our show, for instance, doesn't really want to get affiliated with any company.
Yep.
Because we've called out Beckett, for instance, on a lot of their crap, but we've also, commended them on some of their other stuff. And we want to be able to be impartial and unbiased and say, hey, when you do something good, fantastic. We'll be the first ones to say, kudos. But we don't want to be able to, we don't want to be hamstrung on the other side saying, well, we can't say, shame on you, Panini, for not having our checklists available when we want them as collectors. Right. Because, we're sponsored by Panini, and we want to avoid that.
Get it to you sometime. Don't worry, they're great.
I do want to be clear about one thing, though, real quick. So I did end up writing for Beckett for a couple of years, and it may have been because of what I had written on my, stuff that I'd written had kind of caught the ear of some folks, and it kind of translated into something. And it would have been nice to do that for a living. I was going through a weird time in my career, my first career at the time, where I was surviving all these layoffs. So there was this idea of like, it'd be really cool if I could do that for a living, but it was never been the thing I wanted to do forever, So I just want to be really clear about that.
Yeah, no, I wanted to talk about that. So you had some pieces in there. So how, just what was that experience like? How did they reach out to you based on the blog and say, hey, we'd love to have some, you to do an article or two, or?
Yeah. So I had some interaction with Chris Olds. He was the editor of the Beckett. Actually, he edited quite a bit of their magazines, believe it or not. So he and I kind of struck up a pretty good professional relationship, and he'd asked me to write a piece for him. He's got a journalism background. I've got a journalism background. For those who don't know, I was a professional journalist for about 10 years. And so that's what I did. They asked me to do a couple pieces for them, and then it translated into a column that ran for about 3 years in the magazine, once a month in the baseball magazine. But actually, now that I think about it, the thing that actually got their attention was this Earl Weaver jersey that I found in a thrift store. That's the story behind that is really what they wanted in their magazine, at least for the month. They were doing a special issue on game used memorabilia, and I happened to find an actual legit 77 or 76, I forget, it's up here on the wall, but Earl Weaver jersey in a thrift store here in California. And that kind of led to this idea, hey, can you write about this first person experience? And then it ended up turning into a trip to the National and ended up meeting Earl Weaver before he passed away. So that's a lot of information there, but
yeah, no, that I know that was a really cool story, and it's one I'm going to go back and find it and share out because it was such a cool thing. It leads me into the thrift store treasures. Like for a long time, that was a big part of what you were posting about, and you're finding books autographed by presidents, crazy stuff in stores and paying dollars for them, and like this Weaver jersey was a big one of that. So how did that start with and kind of help fuel collecting and how did you go out finding these things? Because it's been some of the stuff I've seen has been amazing.
Oh, thank you. Well, I like the idea of finding or getting something for nothing, which is a really tough thing to do when you're paying $3 or $4 a pack. Because how many times you're actually scoring out of that. So when I started doing the whole thrift store thing, my thing was like, all right, people are going to be dumping cards. There was that bubble that burst in the early 90s, and people just kind of dumped a bunch of stuff. So my sole intent in going to stores was looking for baseball cards that people were ditching. Well, that ran dry. I started to see a lot of video games. I'm like, how are people just ditching video games and they're selling for like $1 or $2? This is ridiculous. And then, so it became this game of like, okay, what can I find in the store that I can buy for a couple of dollars, flip, for a little bit more, and then actually buy a card I want for my collection. And that was kind of the game I was playing. And meanwhile, I was documenting a lot of that stuff on my blog. And that's when I had a lot more time to do it. I was doing every day, and there were a lot more thrift stores at the time. A couple of them have closed up recently, and there's so many people doing it now that it's almost impossible to do that stuff now. It's really difficult.
Also, too, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, so what would you suggest if people have a good market to look at picking up?
Mm-hmm.
Outside of like the collectibles, the etc. What are your oddball pickups?
Well, for a long, honestly, there was like a 5-year run in the late 2000s when no one was buying like jerseys and video games. Every store I'd go into, I'd walk out with $20 or $30 worth of stuff that I could flip for many times more than that. What's the video game system? Neo Geo and 3DO. They had a bunch of mind you, I live in the Bay Area in Silicon Valley, so there's a lot of kind of expendable income, and this is kind of the hotbed for a lot of that like technology. So people out here were buying that stuff in the early 90s, and they were hoarding it, and then started to get rid of it. So video games were a big thing I was finding out here, and now it's really tough because every thrift store knows that video games, jerseys, old T-shirts, they know their market. They know they're getting stuff for free, and even if they sell it for $5 instead of $1 like they used to, they're going to have more money either for their charity or for whatever business they're doing. So it's a really difficult market to get into right now, even though you have particular celebrities who want to say it's everywhere.
No, my wife and I were just doing some casual thrifting a while back, and we ended up at one in Stockton, California that we hadn't been in yet. Mm-hmm. And they had blaster boxes of Gypsy Queen and Heritage and things that were opened and sealed with most likely junk wax, because they also had baggies of junk wax.
Yeah.
And I was curious, but the blaster boxes were $20. And it's like, I have no idea what's in them, of course. Yeah. And even like the baggies were, the whatever they had them in were $5-8 a piece. So it's like, you can't go there anymore to look for deals, whether it's even for your personal stuff. I will bring this home. I will rescue this, and I will be its mother now.
Yep.
You can't do that, and you can't buy to flip, because what got me in it a couple of years ago was that TV show Thrift Hunters that I think ran for like one season.
Yep.
And these guys are making it look so easy, and my wife and we spent about $180 and listed everything on eBay and turned it into about 1,000, but it was over time. It took months.
That's a big part of it too, right? Like there's money to be had there. I'm not gonna lie, and we all we're gonna say Gary Vee, right? So he's like this hot name right now in our hobby, even just around whatever. Everything Twitterverse is all about Gary V. Fine. There's money to be had there, and it's not like he's not the first person to say this. I mean, we've had TV shows for years. I mean, what about Pawn Stars or what's that? The Storage Wars, right? Like, so all these things, it's all about people are losing their treasures, and we can go find them. We're like pirates, and we find all this stuff, and it's there. It takes time. There you have to spend money to make money too, and it basically becomes your job. And when it becomes a job, it's not fun anymore, and it's not sustainable for long term. It's nice for little short things. You can make a quick profit on something, but you're not going to. It's really tough to make a living on that. It's like the guys who hunt Hot Wheels all day long. You're constantly out at every Target every morning at 7:55, waiting for that door to open at 8, and you're in there, looking to spend $1 to make $3, and that is your life. So it's a quality of life thing. There's so much time, and then you got to spend money to ship it. You got to worry about taxes, and it's a lot.
Yeah, and one thing my dad mentioned, because Tim and I were thinking about doing this to kind of fund our trip to the National.
Yeah.
And he's like, be very careful with what you buy.
Yes.
And I ran into this before. I bought a cookie jar and I shipped it, and the lid had broke in transit. Coffee mugs, and he goes, buy T-shirts, buy things that are easy to ship, because the problem is we have baseball cards, therefore we probably have bubblers, and we probably have top loaders and penny sleeves and team bags, but what we don't have is an oversized jumbo bag, box to send. We may not have packing peanuts and bubble wrap. We may, but we may not.
Yeah.
And when I was shipping for him a couple years ago, when I was off of work recovering, and I was selling a lot of his stuff and splitting the profits with him, my garage was overrun with big bags of peanuts and all kinds of boxes. And what's funny is, I've talked to people before about collecting and how it's not. I don't look to make money. I don't care if my cards appreciate or they depreciate. If I spend $20 like I did on a McGuire short print a couple years ago, and then 2 days later I can have them for $3, whoops, I made a mistake. I misjudged the market on that. I don't care. And I've had people say, oh, you don't, like, seriously, you don't care? And I'm like, no, because the second I start caring, I've shifted my focus, and now all of a sudden I can't enjoy it.
Yeah.
I pay what I like, and then I move on to the next one.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because when you're doing the thrift thing, you're right. It's not, we are card collectors, right? Like, so everything we ship is this big.
Sure.
We can slip that into something. And like you said, you got to buy all that stuff. But there's two things you also have to consider is that, well, eBay is a different world now because all the sellers are getting screwed by these people who want chargebacks, who change their mind. And then secondly, if you're not out buying new product, you're possibly missing that opportunity. So you get into this situation where you're buying so much stuff and not taking the time to sell it. You're really just spending money to spend money at that point. It's just sitting around. So it's.
I want to go back really quick. You talked about the Hot Wheels guys at Target.
Yeah.
And I think we both at one time worked at Target.
Yeah.
I used to run the front end of Target, and so I'd be there early to put out money and stuff. So there would be on the Tuesday or Wednesday mornings, the guys knew what day it was. There was the Hot Wheels, and I didn't understand it at first.
Yeah.
And they would come, and he always would complain to me that someone was taking all the good Hot Wheels before he could get there. I had no idea what he meant.
Yeah.
Because this time I wasn't collecting anything, and I just thought, I was like, dude, who gives a crap about a 99-cent Hot Wheel? There's tons of them. Go back and all their special. Dude, I don't know. Well, I came to find out the receiving guy, the manager, who got in, that worked overnights, was going through all of them and was taking. I talked to him. He's like, "Oh man," he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I make more selling Hot Wheels than I do working here." And I was like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, because we had the employee discount.
Yep.
And he would buy all the hot toys and flip them on eBay. He was making tons of money.
Oh yeah, yep. And it doesn't just exist there. It's every retail store that sells this stuff. I mean, they all have someone sitting around who knows what they're doing.
Yeah. What's funny is years ago, what ended up getting me back in the hobby, and I mentioned this before, was collecting McFarlane's. And my pursuit of going into an LCS looking for. My dad had picked some up at a local card shop, and so I was like, well, let me go and see if he's restocking his McFarlane shelf, and that's what led down this rabbit hole. But I went into Toys R Us when one of the series had released, and they released like 6 Cooperstown guys at a time, and I put them in my cart. There was like 4 of the 6, and he goes, "Oh, you can only buy 2." I said, "Excuse me?" And he's like, "Yeah, you can only buy 2 because people are coming in there." I'm like, "Dude, I have a checklist right here of like, because it was part of my entire checklist," and I was like, "These are the ones I have, and these are the ones I need." and this is the new series. I need these. And I'm gonna look for if you guys have any of the old ones laying around that maybe I don't have. And so he finally, after kind of some coaxing, he's like, okay, I get it. You're probably not buying to resell because you literally have 4.
Mm-hmm.
You're not, I said, seriously, dude, I'll call corporate. I'll do whatever I need. I was so frustrated that day, but the Hot Wheel guy is the guy that ruined it. And it's anything, right? It's McFarlane's. It's the next one, the new Star Wars, all of them.
Yeah, it's funny. The Hot Wheel. So Hot Wheel guy actually became Pokemon guy in '99 when I was working at Target, and that guy pissed me off. So Pokemon was really in the States anyway. Pokemon became really big '98, '99, and I never played it, but I was in charge of the toy section, so I knew what was up. I saw the trends, and so we'd have moms every morning looking for these damn Pokemon cards for their kids, and Hot Wheel guys started to realize there's money in that, so he'd go up and grab the entire peg hook and throw it in his bag, in his basket. And I said, no, we're not doing this. And when you start literally taking stuff, from in front of a kid or in front of the mom who's buying it for the kid, no, you can't do that. Come on.
Yeah.
There's a certain line you draw there.
Yeah.
Well, and to pull that back into this hobby, you're seeing more and more of the autographs, the people that are going to these games, and we all have friends that I got 6 autographs last night from all these players. And it's like, understand though, you're a 40-year-old man. And even if you're doing it for your personal collection, you have this big ass binder. We all know the big photo binders where they have all these cards and they're just handing it to, Joe Smith and saying, Joe, can you sign all this page?
Yeah.
But then the next guy has the same binder and then he's going to pull them out as soon as he gets in his car and list them on eBay. And it's like, that's why
it makes it that far.
That's why when I went to FanFest, everybody swarmed Dave Stewart. They're like, Dave, I got cards. And I'm like,
he's an $8 autograph.
Yeah. I said, Dave, I loved watching you play. Can I shake your hand, please? And he goes, gotcha. Shook hands. I said, hey, would you mind shaking my dad's hand? He's right there. Yeah. Shook his hand and kept walking. Didn't sign a single autograph. I walked away going, not washing this baby tonight.
Let's be honest there. That hand's not been washed in months.
Correct.
It's been washed since then.
But that was the monthly wash weekend. And I was like, well, now it gets delayed. Guess what? Not washing it in January. But
hand is such a different beast, man. I don't get it, especially now because one, you have your fakes, and then you have the guys some guy signed off 27 Hunter Renfros the other day, and he signed them all. Like, what are you gonna do with 27 of those? They're not certified, and people are throwing on eBay for $3 or $4 a piece. Like, come on, man.
That's where you just jade the player for against kids and any other collectors or anything like that. To me, it's rough. It's like, hey man, grow up. Like, I've been to a couple games where I had opportunity, like River Cats here, right? So we get a lot of AAA guys through, and sometimes there's major leaguers there. And it's just, I'd much rather go and get like Ben, shake a hand, get a high five, get a what's up. I'm good. Like I had an opportunity to meet Frank Viola because he was the pitching coach on AAA a couple years ago, and Syndergaard was pitching, and they're legitimately. I was sitting in the front row. And it was right before he made his debut. It was early 2015, and he's like right there. And it was just like, oh, what's up? Like, he's a beast. Look how big he is. And Viola's right there talking to us, and we're having a good time. And it's like, that to me is worth more than any of autographs. I'd much rather have if you go to autograph session where they're going to make some money off of it, they're going to give you a nice clean signature, and that's what they're there to do.
And they're authenticated. So even later, we don't collect for the money, right? But you still want the idea that, well, if something were to happen to me or if you fell on hard times, you need to get rid of stuff. You don't want that question. Oh, is that real? Like, come on. You'd like to have that in the back, at least some authentication.
I have a box. And I told my wife, hey, once you've buried me in the yard, this is the box you need to grab and go and call up Ben and Steph and let them know you need to sell this box, and they'll help make sure that you get the the right price for it. So
you know what's funny about FanFest and meeting people? You know who I was most excited about meeting, and I met like 30 dudes, was Glenn Kuiper. And the reason is if you stand outside after an A's game and all the guys are coming out of the parking lot, every time he drives by, he'll look at you with a big thumbs up, but he will never stop and roll down his window. And so as he's walking by, I was like, Glenn, it's a pleasure to meet you. We shook hands, and I said, you never stop. And you always do the thumbs up. And he gives me the thumbs up, and he goes, I'm ready to go home. And I said, I got you.
when I leave work, I don't want to talk to anybody.
Yeah, I'm saying, and I was like, I got you to shake my hand. I feel vindicated. The world, and he starts laughing, and I was like, it's the memory of that, and it's like I don't need Dave Stewart's card. I got 30 of them certified. What is having one in person going to do for me?
So it leads me to a question, and Ben, if you don't want to talk about this, because I don't know the whole story behind it, but how many do you need?
Oh, you're asking this, Ben? This guy?
Yeah, with you.
Oh, geez. All right.
The Reggie story.
Yeah,
right?
all
I know is Reggie Jackson and how many do you need? And that's all I know. But I know there's got to be something really good behind it.
All right, so here's the story. I think I've written it before. It's really not a secret because I think enough people know about it. But so 2012 at the National, same day I got the Earl Weaver jersey signed. So I'm walking around the show floor, and I come back to the Beckett booth because that's where I was kind of stashing my stuff at the time. And I was talking to Chris Olds. I'm like, hey, man, I'm like, dude, Reggie Jackson's right down the way holding a baseball bat, and there are a hell of people standing around. And I think he was Ken Golden was one of his handlers at the time, which is kind of comical. But so he's like, where? So we go walk on over there, and I don't know if you guys ever seen Chris Olds in person, but Chris Olds is a big dude. And I don't mean as a big dude. He's like legit like 6'4". So he's a big guy, like Shep, right? So I'm 5'10", so he's like 6 inches taller than I am. So we walk over, and at this point, there's 20, 30 people standing around, just kind of watching Reggie. He's holding this, I think it's either a Reggie or an Eddie Murray jacket or a bat he's holding. And he's kind of doing the whole like fake like he's swinging kind of thing. And it was a game used bat. It's somebody's booth. And so people are kind of taking pictures, and Chris and I just kind of show up, and I snap a couple pictures, and Chris is out there with his phone, like taking a picture. And this is 2012, so it's not real sly with it. And Reggie just snaps. He goes, how many do you need? And the group just dispersed, and I said, oh shit, I'm out. I start walking away, and I grab one picture of Reggie looking at Chris, and Chris is still standing there like the one guy taking pictures. So that's kind of where that comes from.
That's awesome. Yeah, I always thought, because he'd always throw out there like, how many do you need? And the thing I really miss about him not being there anymore is like his box break videos. And I think I think a lot of people just went after him because he was a lightning rod to do that. Yep. And he put his name and face out there for everybody. And one, it's hard to do that. Mm-hmm. And two, you kind of have to just say, screw it, I don't care what anybody says or talks about. I'm going to do it. And I loved his videos are really what got me into stuff, because I couldn't wait for him to bust a new box of product or him to go and do his ripping retail. Mm-hmm. Those videos, I'll still watch them today. And just because the knowledge he gave and what he and that's, God, I miss it. Like, I miss those so much. I just wish that there was some more of that material coming out, because that's how I found out about ComC. He would get a ComC delivery and he'd go through it, and he had all it was Steve Swisher, Nick Swisher, and Rick. Sure, but it was still cool to see. Like,
yeah, no, he's an interesting character. I think he really did get a bad rap pretty early on, and some influential people said certain things, and then it just kind of transpired from there, and people started to align with each other. So it's too bad. He's around.
He's a great asset for the hobby. I mean, anytime as I was getting onto the Twitter and I'm asking people, whenever I had a question, I would always tag him. I would always tag Ryan, depending on what it was, maybe Brant Williams or somebody else. It depends on what direction the question was added. And now we have somebody like you that we're all, leaning on, for a resource. If you don't want to wear that mantle, it sucks, dude. You get it anyway.
Well, no, it's funny because you guys are telling me how excited you are to have him. Like, really? Me? This guy? Like, I'm flattered. Don't get me wrong.
We don't know who we influence and how they look at us. I've had people ask me questions, and I'm just like, dude. So somebody hits me up the other day, and he goes, Sport Lots. He goes, I got some questions on Sport Lots. I'm like, Mike Summer. If you want to buy, I can help you, because I can just do it through my own personal. But if you're selling, you got to go to somebody that's been there. It's not me. And whether you like it or not, hey, there's a lot of people that
are tagged, and you're like, did they get the right guy?
Yeah.
No, it's flattering.
Surely you didn't mean me.
Wait.
Yeah.
And we all have our contributions to the hobby, and there are people that we all look up to that are higher on that totem pole. And Chris being one of them, Ryan, of course, another. You're on that list, that short list of people that, again, depending on the direction of the question, that if I have a box breaking question, Pack odds, obviously, Brent's the Bible when it comes to that, or at least has been in the past.
Right.
You know, if it's hey, is this an error? Or there's a spot on my card and I don't know, you know, before I spit shine it to try to get it off, I ask Steph, hey, is this an error?
Right.
You know, and that's what's great about the hobby too.
And I want to know, so there was a set released by Topps on their online, and they dropped
the S, though. You see that? They dropped the S. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I want to know, did you get like some revenues from when I bought these? I bought the Brett and the Barry Sanders.
I've got the Maze one, but no. It is kind of funny. I mean, so this hobby is really interesting. So first off, that's obviously nothing I had anything to do with. It's total coincidence. But this hobby is really small when it comes to the people who work inside that industry. So I mean, who knows? I don't know. I don't even really know what I'm saying on that shit.
Well, but we believe you, because there were times where we talk about Topps Living and like, hey, this guy needs one or this card, and there were like 3 weeks in a row where the following week or 2 weeks later, that guy or team showed up, and we were like,
well, surely we're not Nostradamus, but I mean, come on.
We don't all have like the ability to do exactly what we say, but based on connections and who you know and what people think, or where they, you know, if they agree with you, sure, anything you could. And you guys have actually a really good platform, because people are listening, people are watching, and they're not watching live, but they're going to watch at some point, or someone's going to start talking about it, and that's how it kind of, you know, snowballs, if you will. So, you know, the fact that you're talking about it and then it happens, it is really interesting. But yeah, if you don't say it, it doesn't happen. So,
you know, Panini came out early with 2 checklists in a row right after we had went on a really large rant about, you know, what irritates us in the hobby. And maybe it was just coincidence, but you know what? It's our story and we're about to tell it. So
yeah,
we're going to say that they listened, you know.
Yeah, tongue in cheek, have some fun with it. You know, I mean, I no longer work in the hobby, so I have absolutely nothing, you know, no stroke anywhere. But yeah, the cardboard, going back to the top set, the cardboard icon set was kind of amusing. I said, really? That's funny.
Checking your mailbox like, Daddy's about to get paid.
Right. You should have trademarked that.
Wish I could take credit for that, but no.
It's 8 years later and you're still waiting on your royalty check. Like, it's going to come, honey. And as soon as it does, we're going to get you that new necklace you've always wanted. And it might come, but it'll be like 12 cents.
Yeah. That's fine.
Where Jerry had the carpal tunnel from signing all those 12-cent checks.
Well, so I mean, that's why they say the Bob Feller cards that aren't signed are worth more, just because there's so many that are signed.
Yeah, Feller signed everything in front of him.
And rest in peace, Gary Carter. But I think he signed stickers for months.
There are so many stickers sitting around of that guy, it seems. Yeah. And who was the other guy? Johnny Padres for a while too was a guy. Yeah. He was dead for like 10 years, and suddenly he'd show up in some Topps product, not even a buyback product. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah. I mean, there's a ton of guys. I know Duke Schneider's another one that signed a lot towards the end of his career. I don't know if there's more. A lot of his stuff out. I mean, it seemed like when Stan Musial was passing, you know, like last year of his life.
Yep.
All of a sudden, he's like the guy on every checklist, and you know,
Al Kaline's got a bunch too now.
Who does?
Al Kaline.
Yeah.
Well, he's kind of Kaline's kind of one of the. I don't want to say the last of that era, but I mean, he's kind of a guy. He's a really big name from that era that I don't feel like has a really big following in this hobby. So kind of underappreciated, but
easily
among the nicer looking signatures of active signers of his age group, I could see why they'd want to chase that. I don't think he's very expensive. I think his signature were like $5 a piece. I think that's what he's charging, and that's just my speculation based on a box of stuff that I saw at the National in 2014. He wasn't charging.
I mean, his both relics and autos are easily the most Hall of Fame, the most that I see for players that are in the Hall of Fame. And I know that, I mean, there's at least one or two a week that I see that I identify for the website. And it's, you know, it'd be nicer to see more Killebrew, and Lord knows he signed enough. They actually got him out of bankruptcy, but that's another story. But I mean, it's interesting to see which players will sign a lot and which ones just absolutely refuse to. I mean, just yesterday, not Hall of Fame, mind you, but I got the oldest living Yankee and oldest living Indian as well as the last remaining 1948 Indian World Series winner, signed both his book and on a top spec, actually. But it's interesting to see that they don't completely disappear.
No, and just to follow up real quick on Al Kaline, I punched him in on eBay, and buy it now prices $20 all day long. It looks like that's about the lower end at this point of his stuff from 2018. You can get a 2014 Panini Induction, Cooperstown for 17. So and it's still a beautiful auto, like you said.
Yeah, that's a great looking signature.
Guys like obviously Hank Aaron, who signed some stuff in recent years, you can start to see the the age in his
quality. Yeah,
the quality, definitely has declined, and expectedly so.
Absolutely.
But Al Kaline does not look like he's yet suffered from that. So.
Yep.
So are there any I know you collect your Clemens and Kershaw's you're kind of your newer active player. But are there any products every year that you look forward to that when they come out you're like, oh, this is a product I go out and I pick up every year?
Yeah, Stadium Club is kind of one that I've always loved Stadium Club. I was around 91, when that whole craze kicked off, and I do some photography on the side just for fun. So I really enjoy photography, just kind of the way it's usually made up. And that's why I like Stadium Club a lot. But, I'm not a big giant set collector. My son's kind of gotten into the hobby a little bit in the last couple of years. And I'm not quite sure what direction to kind of point him. At this point, I'm just kind of letting him go wherever he enjoys. So in terms of sets, sadly, I used to try to buy everything, which is really expensive. But Stadium Club, Bowman is something I try to stay away from now. Stadium Club, and
you guys did really well with Prism this year. You always posting, and then this last weekend.
Oh boy!
He went to a 7-Eleven and like at gunpoint, right? Because you cleaned him out. And then I was like, he pulled that one Luke. I said that pays for everything he bought, maybe a tank of gas and some
and a couple of them 2 for $2.29 tacos at the hot counter, and
so my son, and you have to understand the era that he's coming into. So when I was his age, so my son is 8 now. So when I was 8, that was 88. The A's were red hot, right? So the A's and Giants sucked in 88, right? So 89 they were legit, but that was kind of baseball was what baseball as, and then we had the Niners down in this area. So those things in this era for this 8-year-old, the Warriors are the thing. You know what I mean? So basketball has a lot of influence right now, especially in the Bay Area. I mean, this is where things are right now. So it's understandable why he would be more attracted to basketball. So yeah, I showed him Prism and I showed him how it's really kind of like chrome. And, he really liked that shiny stuff. And we broke some of that. And then I started to kind of try to wean him off of it because I didn't feel like he was getting a whole lot of bang for his buck. And not that it's about money. You also kind of have to weigh some of that sometimes. You have to be real about it. So he started getting into Donruss a little bit, and he really likes contenders. He actually really likes the base cards and contenders. So yeah, we stopped buying actually Prism until I ran into that stuff at 7-Eleven last week, and then it was all on from there.
You must have had the only 7-Eleven in the entire country that had cards.
Well, it's kind of funny because cards at 7-Eleven used to be a thing. I mean, even through the mid-90s, you could still buy Topps or Fleer at 7-Eleven, select 7-Elevens. And then in the early 2000s, you'd see some Upper Deck stuff show up, and I guess it wasn't Panini at the time. It was Donruss Leaf Playoff. They'd get their stuff occasionally, and they're franchise stores, so they all carry the same. They're all 7-Eleven. They carry certain things, but they're all individually franchised. So in some markets, you'll see them carry cards, boxes, or even they'll do the plaques. I'm sure some places still have the little plaque with the single card and a little nameplate on the bottom, or a clock with a picture in it. But yeah, so I was surprised because I went in there to get some milk. 2.5 months ago, and I said, what the hell is that, a whole shelf of Prism? That's weird because that stuff was blazing hot at the time. But I just went back in there last week and I said, oh, they're still here, and they're like $1 a pack. I'll take that.
I don't know if 7-Eleven runs the way Quick Stop does. I know Quick Stop, if you own one, you get paid quarterly. You're allowed to bring in whatever you want, and they'll reimburse you. Obviously, they get Quick Stop corporate gets their cut, and then but the owner himself or herself is free to bring in whatever they'd like. and then basically all bills are paid quarterly, and they cut you your check quarterly. So if 7-Eleven runs the same, somebody probably told them that Prism was hot, and they grabbed a bunch and stuck it in there.
Well, it is interesting, though, because if you look at all the stuff around the register, I mean, some of these stores just have, these knockoff hats and, the, drug paraphernalia kind of stuff sitting around. But in this case, they had the Prism, and the lady who rung me up told me about her son used to collect. And so I think he was the one who influenced the store to invest in a case of retail Prism, and actually Hoops retail. So it'd been sitting too long for them. It just didn't fly off the shelves.
Yeah.
So
that's a good deal for you, because I know on the way home, when I stopped at 2 7-Elevens on my way home and looked around, and I said, hey, and I asked them, and they're like, no, we never. And I was like, oh, okay.
What's a basketball card?
So what flavor?
99 cents. And I showed my wife the Luke, and I said, yeah, this card's really valuable. And she goes, well, we can stop on the way home. That's fine. So I thought that was, and the thing is bringing your son into it. And, I know that Ben's given me some stuff, and we have a small box here we need to send out to you of things we put together, mainly for him. I think there might be a couple of things in there for you, but to send out and to help his collection. But it's great to see, him just kind of organic. You just kind of set him down and let him do his thing, and he finds his way. I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. I've never wanted to force sports even on my kids, even before I started having kids. I don't want to be a little league guy who's like, God damn it, Johnny, why aren't you playing better? You don't want to be that guy. And it wasn't forced upon me. Aside from my mom collecting garbage pail kids, no one else in my family even followed sports. No one followed sports. No one really collected cards. I was like the first. So I didn't want to force that on my kids. I just want them to enjoy their childhood and make sure they have their own memories and not something that dad forced them to do. So
is he still collecting A's stuff?
My son?
Yeah.
He's all over the place. He doesn't really have a focus, but he also has other interests. So I really appreciate him being, like he's a video game kid and he enjoys watching some of the sports, and he does what are those things? He does Legos, and what are the metal ones with the screws? Whatever. Anyway, so he's kind of a hands-on. What'd you say?
Roblox?
Well, yeah, no, he does that, but no, not video game stuff. He actually does like physical building of stuff. So, yeah, so I just kind of let him find his own way. He does enjoy the A stuff. My daughter likes the A stuff a lot because she likes green. And
the reason I ask, I got into a Diamond Kings break. I got 6 of Ramon Moriano sitting out there.
Oh,
so
yeah. Hey, we were all there for his first homers, and then I was there that night he threw out Bogarts at the plate. So
nice.
Yeah,
nice. God, that's beautiful.
That's becoming a guy that I feel like I need to like organically. That feels like the guy for me, right? Like, and even I'm not like a A's fan per se. Red Sox are my team. I do enjoy watching.
Yes,
A's.
you are. See, that's the thing is you are in such denial.
Well,
you're such an A's fan that you won't admit it.
It's not denial. It's this idea of I don't want to be called a homer. Right. So go ahead.
Every high school movie ever, there's always like the guy that likes the lead girl, but he won't tell her till the end. And then at the end, it finally comes to fruition, and it's a match made in heaven, right? That's what you are. You're like the guy that just kind of lingers around the team. And I'm a Red Sox fan, but when the lights are out, as soon as we log off, you're gonna put on your Ace hat and you'll be like, "Yeah, they're winning. Watch, you're an Ace fan."
Listen, I tell people I'm a baseball fan first, a Red Sox fan second, and then we'll just kind of go from there. I mean, when it comes to Bay Area teams, I like to see everyone succeed out here. I mean, no one wants to go to games when they're losing, unless they're losing the Red Sox, right? So, or your favorite team. I don't think root against them.
Terrible. Like when they picked Cleveland Farrell number 4 overall, and they could have got him like at 24. But hey,
Cleveland Farrell.
I laughed. I almost wet myself. I was laughing so hard when they made that pick. I had some buddies over, and then when Daniel Jones was taken at 6, I fell out of my chair. And we all, it was great fun. But they're probably one of the only franchises that I wanted to see fail, just because. And then the Sharks too, because I've won so many bets just betting against them.
Yeah. See, I can't stand the Raiders because they really screwed up the Coliseum.
Oh,
they absolutely.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
There was no joy, when they built Mount Davis. Like the only time I've ever been up there is for a Rolling Stones concert. Every other time it's been like tarped off. And I've never been to a Raider game. I don't care. I'm not a huge football guy anyway, but That stadium was so beautiful.
So you look back and you see all the pictures from the 90s, and that was all open, and they had that great scoreboard. And I remember going there as a kid, and we used to sit my dad and I would get bleacher tickets probably once a summer just to go out, and because they had Ricky Henderson and Dave Henderson, and we didn't really care who they were playing. It's just because those guys were so good, and to see them right there in front of you.
Tony Phillips was there too. I mean, they had some great talent in the outfield.
And I get a big mountain, and the stadium kind of smells of urine. And so,
what sucks about that too is the Raiders were never loyal to Oakland. Obviously, they went to LA. Right. They came back, and now they're on to Vegas. And you see, if you want to have a fun day, just say anything negative on Twitter about the Raiders and watch these guys come out of the woodworks. They will defend that team until the end of time. And it's like, why aren't you realistic? Yeah. The Raiders don't care about you. They only care about the bottom line. There's no loyalty. I mean, you see what the A's are doing right now with the all-access passes. And, I mean, they recently put in a quiet room for people that have autism or have anxiety, and you can watch the game at the stadium in this quiet room. And they are trying everything they can. And if you hit up Dave Cavill on Twitter and you have an issue, he's very gracious and always tries to get it done. As long as it's not like, hey, give me free tickets, Dave.
Yeah, I can't root against that franchise, especially now because they're trying. They are trying so damn hard. I was there opening night, and here's what one thing I really love about the A's is the fact that everything's pretty affordable. Especially now, they're bringing all the food stuff down a little bit price wise, but tickets are affordable. I mean, my girlfriend and I went to opening day. It was my third straight, and you can almost sit anywhere for like $50 a ticket. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you can't sit anywhere at a Giants game for $50. I mean, bleachers maybe. You might be able to get
$50 park. And the all access pass is super cheap. Where it's like $200 or something, and you get a ticket for every game, plus 50% off of concessions and parking. And
I should have invested in that.
It really is. I mean, you say what you want about the stadium. You can say what you want about this, that, and the other thing, but you can't discredit what the management team is doing to try to get people invested.
Yeah.
And
they're one of the teams that actually really deserves the stadium, and I hope everything goes their way to build a Jack London Square. And I think if they have a nice stadium, it's going to get a bunch of those people that have never been to a game but want to go because it's the new thing. But also and they're going to get revenue that way, and then you're going to get the fans in there, and it might bring back some old fans that don't want to go to Days game at the stadium now.
Yeah, I'm a little worried about that, honestly. Like, I like the idea of the A's getting a new stadium, but I also don't like the idea of the hardcore A's guys who are there now following that team, wearing the hat with 55 pins on it, being totally priced out.
Yeah,
because they can't go sit for $18 behind the plate anymore. Or $18. You know what I mean? They'll have a good seat for $18, but you can't do anything in a new stadium. Because they need to make the money back. That's the way it works. So it's a little scary to think about that. Because there are a lot of diehards out there every night grinding it out, husband and wife. Longtime couples just love that team. Wearing the old satin jackets and just loving every minute of it. And I love seeing that. I love that. I love that about baseball. And you just don't see that at Giants games anymore. It's just too damn expensive.
Yeah,
it's too much.
I think I've heard like the Giants are having the tickets will come back down, and so we all could go back again because it's insane. Like you're talking $120 for a lower level ticket, and still it's maybe not the best view.
And I've heard the same sentiment here with the Rangers getting the new stadium next year that the $4 upper 300 level seats aren't going to be as cheap next year as well. You're probably not going to be able to bring in hot dogs in a bag, chips, whatever, as long as it clears security. Probably not going to happen, which it's unfortunate because usually if I'm going, I go with a friend of ours who has like a 7 or 8 year old son. And the tickets are already, at least to the lower bowl, expensive enough that, now you have to go spend $4.50 on a thing of nachos and $5 for a hot dog and $5 for a drink, let alone 1 o'clock start. Now you need to go get 2 or 3 drinks every single inning. It adds up quickly.
Well, the Braves and Rangers will have had more stadiums than how many other teams.
Right. Red Sox.
Rangers, that's kind of a. You're going to hit on touchy subject here with Yankee Stadium. Like, it kills me to think that it no longer exists.
It's a partial.
You're right.
Tiger Stadium's another one that's gone. And
as a fan, it kills you. But getting back the Rangers thing real quick, it's like they just got that stadium in like '94. What are we doing?
And it's
Why?
gorgeous. I mean,
it looks great on TV.
It's gorgeous in person. The architecture on the outside is just amazing. Kind of a tribute to baseball history, not necessarily just the Rangers. And I guess they're bringing in the XFL team to play there while the stadium's getting built across the street in 2020. And you're just, I mean, you know, some stadiums you can pull off the multi-use, like the Metrodome. Sure, it kind of makes sense as a football stadium, but Ranger Stadium, I refuse to call it whatever they're calling it now. Ballpark in Arlington.
There's only like 4 sponsors anyway for like all 122 arenas anymore.
Right.
It's like everything is Verizon or AT&T and Oracle, and yeah, like literally there's like 4. It's like tonight's game brought to you by Verizon, or you know, it's in the Verizon Dome. I'm like, well, so if I don't know who's on, I got a 1 in 56 chance of being right.
Yeah, I miss the old Jack Murphy. Like. That was an upgrade, though. The Padres moving out of Jack Murphy to Petco, but the old name. I mean, just having a name after a sports writer, I thought that, you know, you never ever see that.
Even ownership like Jack Kent Cook and stuff like that, and Comiskey Park, and you know, regardless of what the history is behind guys like Charles Comiskey, but having them named after something, you know, say what you will, he owned the team during one of the darkest hours in baseball history.
Well, the Royals, Kauffman Stadium,
you know, yeah, it's like. I would love nothing more than if this A's stadium got built, if they called it not just Henderson Field, but, you know, Henderson Stadium, or, you know, something that pays tribute.
Can't call it Henderson Field now. That already exists. It would be like a cheap ripoff if they did that.
Well, yeah, and you know, again, the A's have Hunter Gate, and you know they've done a lot.
Yeah, they rebranded all that stuff too.
You know, and you know, baseball history is. I've always said I have all kinds of baseball guys around my house: Yankees, Giants, Braves. You know, all the greats of yesteryear. But as a Raider fan, as a Spur fan, I can't do that. You know, there's no Mavericks around my house. There's no Broncos or Chiefs or Jazz or Rockets or Lakers, or you know what I mean. But I can have Mantle and Ruth and Mays and so on and so forth.
It's different. I don't know how, but it does.
It's the history. We know our numbers in baseball. Yeah, you know, in football, do you really care who holds the all-time, you know, touchdown record? It's cool, but nobody really cares at the end of the day.
So we always ask whenever we have anybody on, if you could only own one card and only have one card in your collection, what card would it be?
I feel like I've been asked this question like 10 times, and I always have 10 different answers.
Well, it's kind of hard to choose between your children.
Right. You know, it'd probably be a 91 Topps Clemens. That card just
right along.
It's a horizontal. What's that?
The one right alongside Fenway, or the
he's right,
monster.
He's right up against the monster, and I think it's a strikeout on there. But when I was 11, I was in Little League, and my mom was working the snack shack. We had a game, and sure enough, they were selling Topps in there at the time. And I said, "You know what, Mom? I'm going to buy all that Topps right there." And she's like, "No, you're not." So anyway, she sold me the Topps stuff that was in there. And but that Clemens card was just something, it just stuck with me. It always has. So if I could own one card, regardless of value, you know, or whatever, just one card, there it is. That's the one. That's the one. It just says so much to me. It reminds me of being 11 years old. It, you know, it tells you everything about my youth. You know, Red Sox. It's Clemens. It's the strikeout guy. You know, he's got a little swagger right there, and that set itself, it just says so much.
Oh, right. That set was one of my favorites. The last one that was on the old gray stock before it went to a glossy white card.
Yeah.
You know, it had that. The Boggs card was really cool. They had some different images in that set that just made it stand out. I mean, the 40th anniversary logo, all that stuff was just it really made that one set pop. I think got to a lot of people. So.
And it's still getting added to. I mean, with the Glowback stuff that came out recently, or some of the sheet stuff, or is it Oil Can Boyd's hand that's like 3 different versions twice over?
Yes. Huh. Yeah, and then also, too, I mean, the one big Hall of Famer, Chipper Jones, plus you have the Desert Storm set,
Desert Shield.
Desert Shield cards that are out there. It just kind of has a mystique about it. During, like, really the high point of the junk wax era, you have a set that still has a lot of lore to it, and I think it's really cool. And that's an awesome card to talk about because it stands out in a set that's got a lot of talk on it. So
we'll see in the 91 tops. Well, 91 in general is kind of like that peak. You have the junk wax that led up to 91, and then starting in 92, it started that downward trend. So it's almost like 91 is the top of Mount Everest.
Yeah, well, 92 they started with
that era.
They started having those gold parallels too. So it was like the last of its like. I know the Desert Shield cards exist, or Desert Shield cards exist, but they weren't true parallels. They weren't in the pack sign. They were kind of an entirely different set,
right?
Released differently. So it was kind of the last of its era. It's just such a wonderful set.
Yeah, Desert Shield is more like an O-Pee-Chee set where it's its own self-sustaining checklist, so to speak. Even if it's a 1-for-1 parallel set, it's really not, like you say.
The opening day to Series 1. Kind of
correct, yeah, all in that same bucket. Whether it's O-Pee-Chee, opening day, however you want to classify it, it's in that bucket. That's why I called 91 that Mount Everest, the peak. After that, we started coming down the hill.
Yeah, and then you have like arguably the first redemption cards with the giveaways that they had at the time, where if you were lucky enough to pull it out of the pack, you'd have a redemption for a 1954. Whoever, nobody. Which I mean, they had the quote unquote buyback cards in like one a case, I think, but they weren't nearly as good as like every single one was a Hank Aaron or every single one was a Wander Franco auto number 25, like they are today. And yeah, sure. Some of the candy and gum sets, you'd have like send away 5 wrappers for the at some to complete your missing set. Yeah. But an in-pack, just an innovative set.
So Ben, where can listeners find you? I know you're on Twitter at Cardboard Icons, but where else can they see your great work?
Well, thanks. I do have my blog. It's at cardboardicons.com. Hit and miss in terms of actual content there, and I don't know what the future holds for that. It's just kind of an ongoing. Whenever I got time to sit down and write, I'm a little busy at work right now, so I don't have the time that I typically do. But yeah, so I'm on cardboardicons.com. I'm on Twitter. I am on Instagram. It's not necessarily card related, even though it's the same handle there as well. I have a lot of other kind of stuff going on Instagram as well. So those are the platforms I use.
Well, we definitely appreciate you hopping on and spending part of your Sunday with us and making time. Like I said, you've inspired, I think, all of us in certain ways. And I know definitely my collecting kind of got really more focused after following you and opened my eyes and getting a little bit more into what I wanted to do and look at it my own certain way. So I appreciate that. And you're so generous with your time on there and getting back to everybody. And we appreciate it. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you having me on here. I was really flattered that you guys wanted to have me here. I appreciate it.
Sure. All right, well, guys, we will see you on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Time, 10 Central, with episode 46 of About the Cards. We thanks for joining us on Collector Spotlight today with Cardboard Icons, and we'll see you then.
Yep. See you guys.